Hey guys, this video was meant to be something else, far more light and easygoing. It was meant to come out last week, but then what happened with Charlie Kirk. Now the video won't be, a downy video all the way through, and we will be getting back to our regularly scheduled shenanigans very soon, but I just want to get this one topic out of the way first. So the video was mainly going to be about laughing and countering the ridiculousness of a couple of articles, such as this one from PC Gamer, claiming that the RuneScape boss's decision to cancel Pride events back in June was not an apolitical decision such as he claimed, but that it was actually a far-right decision. I think some of you may already see where this video is going. Then I was also going to mention that other whole thing that went down with Silksong and people on Reddit and other corners of the internet trying to co-opt it to be a trans-coded thing, whatever that even means, to reinforce the main point of the video, which was essentially going to come down to arguing the fact that not doing Pride events in a video game, especially a video game that is a fantasy RPG, or not featuring trans stuff in a weird Souls-like game where you play as bugs, is the apolitical thing to do, and it's very strange that some people are so captured by these identity things that it becomes their main draw for playing the video games rather than the video game itself. And using RuneScape here, it was in fact apolitical because Pride items from previous events weren't removed. You could still wear them, and gay and trans people weren't banned from the game, nor was the game replacing the Pride event with a right-wing rally or whatever. The game was just going back to being just the game, a game that welcomes all people to play the game as they see fit. That is true apolitical neutrality, but extremists don't see it as such. To extremists, you're either bending over to them and explicitly making your games about them, or you are the enemy, even when you're literally doing nothing wrong. And so now, instead of that, we're going to go through that and much more and discuss a few more serious issues revolving around the games industry that relates to part of this rising problem around us of careless extremist rhetoric that game journalists and major studios and publishers are guilty of indulging in far too comfortably for years now. So let's just jump right in there. As usual guys, if you find yourselves enjoying the video and you find the topic to be interesting, giving it a like or a comment will help it reach more people. I think one of the main issues present in the games industry these days and society in general is that extremists, such as the activists in the games industry, both in the companies but also in the gaming journalism cabal, don't know what neutrality is. The word common ground has been completely deleted from their dictionaries. Or they know what it is, but they don't acknowledge it. They don't accept it. You're either all the way with them, or they'll treat you as if you were all the way on the other side by pretending as if silence, moderation, or even debate itself is equal to violence. This is totally delusional, of course, but this is the narrative that they run with, and they have infected the games industry, so it's what it is, it's what we're stuck with. The biggest, controversial matters that have been discussed over the past few years, like for example with Assassin's Creed Shadows, or with Dragon Age Veilguard, or with Dustborn, these kinds of games, while I do admit that the discourse around these games has always been more heated, part of that is also because of the games media, because you could have 1 million people complaining about how Assassin's Creed Shadows should not be advertising itself as historically accurate when it is indeed not being historically accurate, when it's being so disrespectful to the culture throughout Ubisoft's many mistakes. None of it will matter to the games media, none of it will matter to articles like this written by Alyssa Mercante last year, saying that none of this has ever been about anything else other than hate. This kind of thing is highly influential in all the wrong ways. You essentially have an arm of the mainstream media telling you that everyone who dislikes these games, no matter if they write a short comment or a long essay detailing why, is hateful. My main thing here on my channel is gaming, so of course I'll be focusing on that. But we all know that this stretches far beyond. I mean, a man is dead because of this kind of rhetoric, this inability to understand neutrality, moderation, a middle ground, and most of all, free expression. this way of thinking, this dreadful ideology that touches on so many things around us and that deems disagreement to be an attack. And in this video, yeah, I'm gonna be tackling the gaming side of things, because this is how this took hold in the games industry. In the beginning, it was kind of mainly about pointing out these supposed issues of big studios, basically saying things like, hey, look at all these white cis male characters, we need more diversity, we need to let other people feel seen, which was something that was already flawed off the get-go, because it implies that the majority of characters were white through a deliberate move to make white people feel seen, and that's just not the case. People really don't care about this. We just wanted good games. I never felt unseen just because my people, my history, and my culture were never present in any mainstream video games. And in general, I believe this need to feel seen is a problem. It's a very narcissistic thing, and honestly, I'm no doctor, but it feels like it's part of some mental illness or some shit. It also touches on racism, honestly, like only being able to enjoy a video game if it personally represents you and facets of your experience, personality, or general identity, while demonizing others just because the characters pass for white, even though them being white was literally never part of their story or identity. Hell, so many of them weren't even stories set on Earth, they were fantasy and sci-fi, is weird. Games are mainly just interactive products to get you to feel lost in a compelling story and setting, or at least they used to be. And these characters weren't born out of this modern tribalistic idea of identity. They were usually just reflections of the own cultures of the people who created them, like for example The Witcher. It was a Polish guy who wrote it, so of course Geralt is a white guy, and since the lands were inspired in medieval Europe with a twist of magic and fantasy, then of course the people of the northern realms are going to be mostly white, and then other people in other regions like Courier were not white. These things were always so simple, but these people came in with their tribalism and just complicated everything, creating division between people and imposing rules like, oh, if you don't have a diversity quota, then you're a racist. Look, man, it doesn't mean that you can't feel a bit of a, hey, I relate to that kind of moment if it ever happens. For example, when I saw Portuguese vessels in Assassin's Creed Black Flag and I went to Lisbon in Assassin's Creed Rogue, I did that Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the TV like, hey, that's us. But in the end, I could care less if I'm not included, and I didn't. Throughout the entire Assassin's Creed releases, that's two small little presences out of dozens of games that I enjoyed in the series regardless. This, however, is not the mindset of these activists. This may have started as a good-hearted and genuine thing a long time ago, like at the beginning, but what it ended up spiraling into was them wanting a total takeover under the guise of diversity and other things that are meant to sound good and positive, but in practice it just ends up being divisive and inviting more extremism, because if you complain, you're some kind of an ist or a phobe. And of course people are going to complain because they're being ousted from their hobby. They're being told that the games and media that they've enjoyed for years was problematic, and the reason being given for it is always, oh well, because I say so. So inevitably people are going to complain about it, and inevitably they're not going to be listened to and they're going to be demonized. What are we doing here? Obviously this is a bad thing. Obviously this is going to lead to escalation. And it's so needless too. We've always had diversity of characters in games. That's another thing that these people lie and paint false narratives about. You look around and there's been all manner of characters, all manner of locations, and all manner of ways of depicting them. Like for instance, female characters. Some of them were badasses like Lara Croft, others were princesses in despair waiting for a hero to come save them. And there's nothing wrong with that unless you're a brain-rotten activist. Like the ones who did complain about it by saying that it was bad, it was misogynistic, it was patriarchal, it was harmful to women, blah 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 blah. Like, why are we doing this? How do we get here? How the fuck did these people get so much power in the industry? To say what it is and what it isn't, to force companies to bend to their wills. Brain-rotten activism is the main source of this goddamn extremist mindset. It's what makes coexistence impossible because, again, there's only two states of mind. You're either with them or you're against them. They don't understand or recognize nuance. They can have conversations fans to defend their positions without going unhinged. They tout the words diversity and inclusion all day every day, but they have zero conscience to be even open to diversity of thought. Going back to that RuneScape Pride article thing, the title reads, "RuneScape boss says he killed new Pride events to keep things going as apolitically as possible," which doesn't sound very apolitical to me. By the way, this entire thing is labeled as news. See right there under the title? Not opinion, straight up news. I'm not gonna bore you with the whole thing, but basically back in June this year there wasn't as many Pride event stuff. Some companies skipped it altogether, others only started around halfway through the month not to raise too much attention to themselves, and then others went all in. With the company behind RuneScape, Jagex, they either skipped it or dialed it down significantly. According to some, it's one thing, according to others, it's another, and the journal here who wrote the article doesn't clarify. Regardless, the point is, there was no major Pride event like before. And the CEO spoke out because a couple of people made a fuss about it. Obviously, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't want to be that guy, but it didn't amount to anything. It didn't impact the game or the company at all. Nobody cared. It just is what it is. People don't care about this stuff in games like these. It's just there for virtue signaling and making money off of it. Doesn't even fit into the whole fantasy aspect of the game. And yeah, I don't want to be that guy, you know, I don't want to be over here like, oh, but it's just true, okay? Nobody gave a fuck. Let's just be honest here. When it comes to games like these, nobody cares. A lot of noise can be generated online because they have the power of the media behind them, but when it comes to sales and money at the end of the month or player base, there's no change. If they did it in other games, there would be a noticeable impact, like for example, if suddenly the Life is Strange video game series stops being about lesbian girls, that franchise is going to be taking a big impact. But fantasy, you know, RPGs, action RPGs, action games, we don't care. But the CEO spoke out anyway in regards to it, saying that basically it just is what it is. The whole Pride thing has become very controversial right now, and in order to better serve the future of his company, he took it out and would consider doing it again next year if needed, because the game and the company come first. Now personally, I have no idea where this guy's stance is. I'm not sure if he truly sees the reality of the situation or if he's just doing what other companies do, which is basically all down to the money. If it's profitable to do Pride stuff, they'll do it. If not, they won't. The only reason this ever became popular was because it was profitable here in the West. Meanwhile, the same companies that did it here in the West did not do it for other areas of the world like the Middle East and Asia. They didn't do anything there. Their social media pages did not change. Their games would not have those kinds of elements in them. If they could remove them, they would. Like for example, Spider-Man. There's no pride flags and no gay relationships in the game version that released in the Middle East, for instance. In the guy's own words, I totally sympathize with what's being said. At the top of my totem pole will always be the continuity and operation of our games as apolitically as possible. Ultimately, our games offer escapism to many hundreds of thousands of players every day. If that escapism opportunity is compromised, there's a very real risk to the business. So this acknowledges the reality of the situation, that Pride event stuff in another worldly fantasy RPG doesn't make any sense. It breaks immersion, it screws with the escapism. However, he also says, if the world has changed a bit and the environment is different, we will react accordingly. So in other words, money. He doesn't care about escapism. If doing Pride events becomes more profitable, or if some government grant pops up and offers him a big bag of money, then maybe he'll do it, and if not, then he won't. There it is. However, what matters when it comes to games journalists and activists in this industry is that this is an affront regardless. In their own words, this is a far-right decision, and here's the quote. Hosting Pride events is not apolitical, but nor is cancelling them in order to cozy up to far-right governments. The latter is just easier. If Bellamy's priority truly is to prevent the compromise of the escapism it offers to its many players, I have to wonder how RuneScape's numerous LGBT players feel about their escapism right now. And so yeah, this is just ridiculous. First of all, escapism isn't player-based, it's based in the game world. if I, as a player, am a huge fan of Thomas the Tank Engine, does that mean that if Skyrim doesn't come out with Thomas the Tank Engine skin as a fucking dragon, then my escapism is ruined? Of course not, because I'm playing Skyrim, not whatever the fuck else. So basically I have two options, actually three. Number one, just shut up and play the game as is intended. Number two, ditch the game entirely as it is not for me. Or number three, install a Thomas the Tank Engine mod on my personal game and again, shut up. Second of all, even if this was actually the case and this thing was black and white where you have to pick one's group version of escapism over the other to ensure that it continues, the LGBT players wouldn't matter here because there's far less of them and so their desires are irrelevant since they don't bring in enough money. Just like the situation would be reversed in predominantly LGBT games, where the most profitable avenue is to cater to them. Third of all, not hosting pride events absolutely is the apolitical thing to do. It is the absence of political influence or elements in the game at an official capacity. RuneScape is not banning gay people from playing their video game. That, yes, could be considered a political decision, but LGBT players can keep playing the game to their heart's content. They can even keep using the immersion-breaking pride items if they want to that they got in previous events. The game did not remove them, they're still there. In fact, there was a picture I saw earlier this year when this story first came out, and I'm gonna try to find it if I can, where there's a congregation of LGBT players hosting a pride protest. I think it was the no gay, no pay protest that they did in RuneScape when this news came out. There were about like 60 people standing around with their little cosmetics. The company didn't ban them from the game, nor did they ban them from wearing these items and getting together to do their own little protest or event or gay adventure. You can do whatever you want in this game. That's apolitical. The company is not officially taking a stance on one way or the other. They're just like, hey, here's the game, play it, that's it, we're out of here. But what about... Nope, no official events, we are not hosting any right-wing rallies, and we are also not hosting any pride rallies. Go ahead and just play the game. You want to wear the rainbow cape? Wear the rainbow cape. Do whatever the fuck you want to do. Just don't bother me and don't bother my company. And then the journalists come out, this is far right! I mean, Jesus, this is far right? Are you retarded? There's a serious epidemic of moron journalists who don't know the definitions of words. And that's the good faith interpretation because honestly, I think they know the definitions of these words, they just don't care, and they want to use them anyway to incite more division and more extremism. This is the kind of rhetoric that radicalizes people. This is the kind of nonsensical, hyperbolic bullshit that further divides people and dehumanizes them. This is the type of thing that incites and justifies violence. And retards like this Joshua Wolens, who is about as much of a journalist as I am a fucking quantum physicist, are pushing it out onto the mainstream when it comes to the gaming scene. And outside of this, now just towards the players, like, if your sole reason to play RuneScape is because it had a pride event, and now that it doesn't, and it's just the video game as it always was, you don't want to play it anymore, that means you're not really a RuneScape player, you're a modern audience member, a tourist, and your best interests do not align with the best interests of the studio making these games, nor of the other players who would rather have developers working on meaningful RuneScape content rather than a pride event. So many live services and other single-player titles, but mainly live services like this in particular, suffer from this, where every other month it's something month, and so off the devs go making skins and shit for it instead of meaningful content. Halo and Destiny are prime examples of this, where they go and make stuff for the Women Month, and then the Pride Month, and the Black History Month, and the Disability Month. Like, god damn, can we get a Halo month with some Halo content, please? Jesus. So before going into this whole RuneScape article thing, I mentioned that maybe, just maybe, this might have all started from a good place with good intentions. But honestly, it's hard for me to even say so, because if we go back to the first Gamergate, something I only read about because when it was actually happening, I was not aware of it at all. I was basically going to school, coming home, playing Minecraft and Skyrim for the remaining hours of my day, and then going to sleep, so bear with me here. But in the first Gamergate, we had incredibly disingenuous people like Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, and Zoe Quinn making baseless claims just to try and influence the medium to change for them. They even spoke at high places like the the United Nations advocating for it. And again, there was that root of disingenuousness. Basically, their whole shtick was to address targeted misogyny in online spaces, predominantly in gaming, using the backlash that was generated against them as an example. And they did get a lot of backlash. The lie is not there. It's just that it omits the entire truth, where these women were trying to bring feminism into video games, urging for censorship of not just designs of characters, but also the way that characters were written, making claims about how problematic these designs and stories were, and how that needed to change because it was hateful or harmful or, patriarchal, the stuff from before. And naturally, gamers were being extremely defensive over their franchises and medium in general, because it was just a load of bullshit. The games industry is wide and open enough that anyone can create whatever games they want to. They could have done that or chosen to uphold and promote games that depicted female characters the way that they liked and approved of, and everything would have been fine, but that wasn't enough for them. Their desire was, again, to take over, to enforce their beliefs, to force others to change the way that they make games and be ashamed of their previous work. It was either their way or the highway, and in this case, the highway was being labeled a sexist and a problematic studio. So basically, I hope you understand why I struggle to believe that this kind of thing was ever started from a good spot. It may have been, but I'm skeptical. And even if it was, it doesn't really matter anymore, because now we are where we are, and the situation has evolved into being frankly claustrophobic. Over time, this activism only grew stronger. It never relented. What was once an appeal for game companies to be more diverse and inclusive according to their metrics in the games that they made was now a requirement. And if you failed to meet that requirement, you'd have activist groups online, activist groups within the studios, and activists working in the video game journalism cesspit targeting you and attacking you. Neutrality faded away completely, and the examples of this that we see now are honestly so ridiculous that it's actually impossible not to laugh at them. Like take Black Myth Wukong for example. This game was accused by games media for being toxic and pandering to far-right people simply because the game has no black, brown, trans or gay people walking around in ancient mythological China. Do I even need to say anything else? You're playing as the Monkey King of Legend, and you're literally fighting bears, pigs, dogs, centipede, spiders, snakes, whatever the fuck this is, and then the occasional Chinese deity or character of legend. Why the fuck would it need to look like downtown Los Angeles in order for these journalists to not call it far-right? It's all in this .esports article, an article that was so boosted that even though I never followed .esports, I got it on my Facebook newsfeed when it came out. This was the rhetoric that was being spread out online to the public about the game by what are supposed to be reputable, trustworthy news sources. The game was also accused of being sexist for two reasons: an article by IGN where they blatantly mistranslated sentences from the developers to make them look bad, and because there's no women in the game. Except there were. The problem is, you see guys, I'll explain to you guys. I'm a good guy, I'll explain to you, and I'll explain to you in good faith too. So the problem was that the game does have women, however, the game also has tough boss fights, and there's no button to skip them, so game journalists didn't manage to get far enough into the fucking story to see them, which were right there in chapter 3, which is still considered early game by the way. But don't worry though, despite not even managing to reach the mid-game, they still went and wrote full reviews on the game. Man, isn't it just so nice to be a game journalist? You literally have nothing to do. You don't even have to finish the video games that you write reviews for. You don't have to research anything that you write about. You don't have to provide sources on anything you make up, and you just get paid for it. Anyway, no, you know what? I'm not done yet, okay? Because this is actually in the article too. This guy spent 40 hours in the game playing it for the review. 40 hours. And he didn't manage to get past the second goddamn chapter? This is like 6-7 hour territory. What are you doing? Staring at a fucking wall? This game is actually very misogynistic because there's no women in it. Brother, you didn't even make it halfway to the halfway point. whatever, I'll move on now. Other games that suffered similar rhetoric online was stuff like Final Fantasy XVI, which was accused of having overwhelming whiteness, simply because the setting of the game was going for a fantasy world with different regions and borders, basically with a foundation of medieval fantasy, and in the game the Duchy of Rosaria was predominantly white, the Sambrak Empire was also predominantly white, but then further south, the Dalmatian Republic featured people of color. You know, because borders and nations exist. Now just take a second and think about what would happen if anyone picked up a copy of, say, GTA San Andreas or whatever, and said that there was too much blackness in the game.
You picked the wrong house, fool! Oh my dog, what's up?
Yeah, anyway, I know, I forgot. We can only do that to white people, we can do it to the other ones, but to white people it's okay to rag on them. I forgot about that. It's a general internet rule, I forgot. I'm sorry, guys. My bad. But please keep this in mind for just a little bit. I just want to go through a couple more examples first. GTA 5 was also accused of using stereotypes to depict black characters. Apparently, you can show black gangbangers in downtown LA. It's, inappropriate and totally not real, and objectifying women, which is funny because of all the GTA games, I found GTA 5 to be the most tame in this regard. Also, the playable characters weren't diverse enough, as if that mattered to literally anyone actually playing these games, rather than, their writing and personal storylines. Resident Evil 5 was another funny case because the game was accused of being racist because the setting of this particular Resident Evil game happens to be in Africa, so most of the zombies were African, but what's the alternative here? If they made the zombies white, then it would be racist because it's whitewashing the setting or whatever. So I guess we just can't have many games in Africa. I mean, no matter what you do, you'll have to, you'll have IGN calling you a bigot. I wonder if Resident Evil 4 is racist too. I mean, I believe that one takes place in Spain, and so the zombies, some of which aren't even really zombies, they're just, ugly local Spanish people. Is it racist as well? I mean, I don't know, Spanish people aren't, they're kind of white, but they're not really white. Like, you take a Spanish person or even a Portuguese person and you put them next to, actual white people, like Scandinavians and shit, and we look like Mexicans. So, I mean, I don't know. You guys are gonna have to answer that one for me. I mean, AGN has to answer that one for me because I don't know. Yeah, I'm not versed in this kind of stuff. I didn't go to the school of retardation, so I don't, you guys gotta help me out. Kingdom Come Deliverance is another example, and a really visceral one, because they accused this game of being history revisionism because it was unrealistic that the Kingdom of Bohemia in Europe in the year 1400 or 1500? No, I think it was 1400, but anyway, medieval, right? Which is around where the Czech Republic is now, was all white. These were grave accusations by actual history revisionists, and it's incredible that the outlets pushing this narrative out into the public are still around posing as news. So basically, why is this bad? Why does it bother me so much, and how does it pertain to the rising temperature in the political climate of late? Well, it's all shit that's playing into the same agenda. An agenda of white bad. If game white, then game audience must be far right. Same with gender and sexuality. Cis bad. If game characters cis or unassummed, then game audience is far right. Heterosexual bad. So if game characters are straight or unassummed, then game bad and game audience is far right. This is how this industry has operated for years, and this is also enabled for a lot of what's happened over the past 5 years or so, where so many studios hired people who not only believe this, but actively push it onto their own games, opening whole departments for them or hiring consultants whose sole jobs are to do this kind of consulting and nothing else. And this has only gone on to make things more toxic, for various reasons that I've laid out in previous games of mine, and that I would rather not go over again so that this video isn't super long and repetitive for people who regularly watch my content. Plus, it'll be pretty self-explanatory when taking into account the fact that there can be no neutral stance, nor central stance. I mean, just think about it in layman's terms. Imagine that you're heading out to get a coffee, and the person serving you tells you that you can only have your coffee one way. You just want a regular one, but they say that there's no such thing as a regular coffee that's actually ableist, and so you will be having to have their special coffee with all kinds of shit sprinkled into it, and if you don't like your coffee that way, with all the bullshit that they throw on top of it, then you don't belong in the coffee shop and that's it. You're some kind of a coffee purist. Obviously, that would annoy everyone going out for coffee. It makes you never want to spend your money there. Now multiply this by 1,000, stretch it out to over a decade, throw in more and more and more coffee shops that they've invaded, and instead of a coffee purist, they're calling you a real-life fascist. Something that is monstrous. Something towards which violence is normalized. And voila, you've got yourself a pretty picture of why the games industry has grown so incredibly toxic and divisive. It's not because these people exist within the industry. As I said before, anyone can make whatever games they want. It's because they've ideologically forced themselves into major companies working on beloved major franchises, turning them into shit, leading to a god-awful destabilization where so many studios have gone on to cancel their projects or shut down entirely because of how unsuccessful their games have been. And in the meantime, the games media blames us for not wanting to play the games because of bigotry. And all because people cannot conform to the reality of neutrality. Video games and entertainment in general should be completely neutral ground so that people can just unwind and enjoy themselves at the end of a hard day. And so that various people from various backgrounds can come together and share this one positive thing that they love, regardless of identity or political affiliation. But extremists cannot accept this, because again, neutrality doesn't exist for them. On one hand, you're either all the way with them or you're all the way against them, and on the other hand, if you're not all the way with them, they literally don't want you playing their games. After all, what's that slogan that they like to use sometimes? This game or this movie or this show, etc. is not for you. And then people are like, well, okay then, I guess it's not for me. And then, the things fail and then they attack them like, oh, the toxic fan base didn't show up for it. Again, these people are legitimately unwell. This isn't normal behavior. This isn't a normal mentality. It's the same kind of inhumane, radicalized bullshit that we've been seeing over the past few days. They don't even want to share the goddamn hobby. Is it any surprise that we saw despicable comments from game developers in the industry? We've been seeing them for over a year, honestly. Just nobody really does anything about it. What's really relevant here though is that for gaming to heal, not just communally but also financially, we need to start rejecting these people. We need to shame them and laugh them out every time that they try to preach to us. Don't get me wrong, if you want to work in the highest levels of the games industry, at companies like PlayStation and Xbox and EA, Ubisoft, etc., like these giants, while handling our beloved franchises that were created far before you ever even joined these companies, you can. But just do your job and make some good games that respect and appeal to your audience. All of your audience, not just the ones that you side with politically. Do that and all is fine. You can have your own personal opinions, you can vote on whatever you want to vote, but as soon as you start preaching and demanding shit and alienating people, you are a detriment to the company and you need to go. I honestly don't know how companies haven't even learned this yet, like they've been losing money because of this kind of thing. It's not the only thing that they've been losing money. They've also been spending a lot of money while making big budget AAA games. They've been spending hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't even know in what, but having these people making decisions for the games makes it all even worse, because they're placing their ideology ahead of the money that the company should be making by delivering a good product with wide appeal. If we need to boycott harder than even last year in order to get them to learn that shit the hard way, so be it. If they refuse to learn entirely and want to be making garbage until they go broke and shut down, so be it as well. One way or another though, it's time to stop supporting the people that push this collective agenda of labeling everything as far-right. Far-right this, far-right that, over pointless menial bullshit or moderate takes that do no harm to nobody. All this is doing is just poisoning the well that is culture and society in general. All of these things, no matter how small and localized they may seem within the games industry, are cogs of the same main machine that got us to be going through such a dogshit timeline. And the people it invites and places high up is so crazy too. Like, how many times have we seen community managers spazzing out online at their communities because of the garbage environments that they create? Helldivers 2 almost died because of this shit before Xbox and PC gave it a recent resurgence. Remember the Godot engine thing too? If you didn't agree with the community manager's personal views, she would ban your ass? That shit was ridiculous, and it's yet another example of this constant politically driven toxicity, because instead of hiring and promoting people of sound mind that keep politics out of things and just want to serve their player bases, all of them, by the way, not just some of them, they're hiring retards who just want to tribalize things. It's ridiculous, man. And it's the fault of these studios too, and the environments that they created where you either conform to the echo chamber or you're forced to stay silent. Look at all the unhinged developers we've seen filled with scorn for their own communities and potential customers. Matt Hansen from Obsidian, David Gator, formerly from BioWare, the guy from The Initiative who was working on the Perfect Dark game before it got cancelled, the chick from Compulsion Games, creators of South of Midnight, the jackass from Hit Detection who worked on the Silent Hill 2 remake, the fruitcake from CD Projekt Red working on either The Witcher 4 or the next Cyberpunk game, who wants to engage in fisticuffs with the gamers. The entirety of Sweet Baby Inc. led by a woman who publicly hates white people. That other chick who was working on an indie game and proudly stated for all to see that she didn't hire white people because they were a problem.
Big team is a crazy big team for indie games. But who is your team? Validate has a team of mostly all people of color. We have no white people on our team. I did that because I wanted to create a safe environment. And I know the best way for an environment to be safe is to be around people who are just like me.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that white people in the industry are creating unsafe environments. I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that sometimes it is hard to work with white people because they think that something made okay, but it was really a microaggression. And no one wants to deal with that while they're trying to make a game that they love.
Let me give me a minute. I want to take your time. Look. Okay, can you swear here? Can you swear? Okay. Fuck you! I'll tell you! This is bullshit.
Then she got promoted to work at EA on the Black Panther game. Ain't that nice? Ain't all of these examples just so nice and lovely? Isn't it super awesome how neither of these people who openly hate on their communities, potential customers, or even entire groups of goddamn people ever got fired for having these stakes? The only reason why some of them are out of a job right now is because their games fucking failed and then they got laid off. But consequences for their actions? Zero. Nada. Zilch. Because this industry has been infected at a high level with this destructive ass wokeism. Accountability? What is that? What is that? Some kind of new Starbucks flavor? Consequences? What is that? What is this word? Can I shove it up my ass? I've spoken a bit about this in a recent video about the game aiming to spread misinformation about illegal immigration and glorify it. What we've seen in the games industry so far isn't even significant. It's going to get worse unless it gets called out. This is a statement from the main dudes at Gamescom. Take a look at it. Why we need politics in gaming? We are the most influential art form at the moment, we are at the heart of pop culture, and this gives us a responsibility as an industry as well to be political in a way. And even if we tried not to be, we still express beliefs, and we are influential on millions and billions of people worldwide. First of all, this is not even a cherry-picking thing. There's so much more of this in the industry, and you guys can check out that video if you want to, where I share examples of GDC, the Game Developers Conference, where main names in this industry, we're talking about the biggest companies, EAs, Microsofts, etc., participate in giving talks just like this about politicizing games and teaching developers how to be political in their games, and the politics are always one-sided, and you already know which side it is, and yes, they're as extreme as it fucking sounds, because anybody that speaks against them is treated like the devil. And sometimes it isn't, I've said this before too, sometimes it isn't even speaking against them, it's speaking against having them in the games. Because if I want to play a game, then I want to play a fucking game. I don't want to watch CNN. I want to play a video game, brother. Now on to the message itself. Second of all, everything being political is Redditor retard nonsense, and anyone who has played more than a handful of video games will know that, especially if you've played older games where even if politics were used, they were not games that were political in nature in the way that this parasite is trying to allude to. They were games like Metal Gear or BioShock or whatever, where you use the theme of politics in the universe of your game, but you're not pushing an agenda on divisive contemporary issues. I made a video about this too a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, you know, I've only been making videos for about a year now, but I made it a few months ago. I'll put it in the description and the top comment. The thumbnail is the one on screen right now. Now the big one. That statement and so many other actions that these people have been taking of late have shown that these people are increasingly aware of the potential for influencing young minds that gaming has. That is why they want to shove politics into video games, turning them from entertainment into a tool for indoctrination and propagandization of whatever the fuck political sides they associate with. And this right here is a cancer. And I don't use that word lightly. We just don't want politics in video games. We don't want ideologically charged content, no matter if it comes from the blue party, or the red party, or the green party, or the purple party, the fucking rainbow party, or the colorless party. Leave your politics in the evening news or your Twitch channels. Games are for entertainment, period. Ah, but Des, who says you can't make politically driven games entertaining? The last 10 goddamn years prove that you clearly can't. The more ideological influence is concentrated in the making of a game, the worse the game became. And then it's not just that, it's also the type of people that it invites, like we just talked about. Because when you have this kind of mentality, you're inviting activists, and activists never stop. It's never enough for them. Hell, you're giving people jobs where they're essentially being paid to do activism. If you're paying somebody to be an activist, how the fuck is the activism ever going to stop? They're being paid for it. If they stop, they get fired. What are we doing here, man? All they do is just make things worse and worse and worse. The quality of the game declines, people complain, and they get called bigots for it. When you still have a game that's actually just a game and just has a few things on the side, like for example Baldur's Gate 3, they are successful, but the more of this shit you concentrate, the worse it is, the worse communities it breeds, the worse studio environments it creates. And that's the thing that goes well beyond the game quality. It's what it does to the culture around gaming, which is what we just went over. You bring politics into it, you poison the well and invite retards who will put their politics ahead of their jobs as game developers. This industry had 10 years to make this work, and the results have been abysmal to the AAA scene. And worse again, please, the culture. Oh my god, look, I forgot about this example in the previous ones. This was a Blizzard employee. I don't even want to say what he said because, you know, YouTube and stuff. Look at what this man posted, dude. Come on, Des, you know, it's just a crazy guy. There's a lot of crazy people. I agree. There are a lot of crazy people, but how the fuck are there so many of them in the games industry and entertainment in general? It's not a fucking coincidence, guys. They dove and drank deep of this intolerant, monstrous ideology, and these are the results. I'm spent, man. I can't even... I swear, dude, like... I don't even know what to say. You know, it hits different after what just happened to Charlie Kirk. Because so far, it's like, you know, I talked a lot about these things, and other people have been talking about it far longer than I have been. And many a times, it's even in a comedic manner, kind of like that article from... that I just showed you guys from PC Gamer about the RuneScape thing. It's funny how ridiculous the narrative is, but there's people out there who take it seriously. There's a lot of people out there who take it seriously. There's a lot of people out there who drink all of this Kool-Aid. They get directly exposed to all of this misinformation and all of this violent rhetoric. It's not even that it's a violent rhetoric. I mean, it is, but it's not just that it dehumanizes people. And then what happened just happened, and now it makes it all just so much real, and it just straight up takes the words out of me, man. It's always been a bad thing for business. It's always been a bad thing society as well, like we see it, but now it's real, dude. And so many companies have been irresponsibly playing into it for so long. But let me just recompose myself and we can do the final thoughts of the video. In the end, these things end up being bad for business, bad for the communities of their games, bad for the gaming scene in general, hell, bad for the very people that they use to virtue signal for profit, and bad for society in general. I wish these people would also wake up and see how they're being used too, because, I mean, damn man, in all my years alive, there's never been more adversity and divisiveness when it comes to, for example, LGBT stuff. And usually what these activists do is they see this and they blame the far right and they move on, without looking around and realizing that it has been their extremism that has ended up radicalizing so many more people. Like, don't get me wrong, of course, there's always been people who are just inherently against gay and trans people who have that inherent ick towards them, you know? But the reason why this sentiment of fatigue is so much more prominent today is because the LGBTQIA2S+++ community began antagonizing people. They gave into the extremism. They adopted super controversial ideas and began pushing them without their own people calling out and separating themselves from this extremism. Like when they began going for the kids, that was it. It was over. I think that was like the big turning point, together with the female sports debacle, the bathroom, self-ID issues. I think these were the big three. And then of course there's been other smaller but still significant things, like for example in the gaming space back in 2023, you had to hide your copy of Hogwarts Legacy under the floorboards, otherwise the Rainbow Reich would attack you. And at the end of the day, I can't help but feel bad for all the normal people who have to suffer the consequences of what their identity, something that is just part of them, has been forcefully attached to and made to represent thanks to activists, extremists, and the companies that help push their agendas. What's the solution? I don't honestly know. That's above my pay grade. But I do think that it'll be much easier to reach a mutually beneficial one if we at least denormalize extremist violent rhetoric online and in culture by rooting it out of media and entertainment. Like seriously man, it's time to stop condoning this, it's time to stop giving these companies money. We see where it leads to. There's nothing against having differing opinions, but if you can't express them without calls to violence or language that incites and justifies it, or tries to shut other people out, such as calling everything far-right and fascists, then you need to shut the fuck up. You're unfit, your brain is broken, you can't engage normally, you're inciting violence in an incredibly volatile time and justifying it. Like, come on, if you're so mad at someone's steak, how hard is it to just call them a retard while responding instead? Let's be civil here. It can be something else too, like asshole, douchebag, piece of shit, pussy, see you next Tuesday, mother scumbag, wanker, etc. The possibilities are endless. You only choose violence if you're the agent of an agenda that cannot stand for itself, an agenda that lacks popularity because it is inferior and problematic, and so the only way to enforce it is through violence or censorship. In other words, that, yes, is definable with fascism, and it has no place in civil society.
It was so eye-opening to me after I left this industry for a year, and then I came back and said, what the fuck happened? Yeah. But there's a problem that nobody wants to address, and it gets worse every single day until this happens, until you do something about it, until you act like Phoenix has said, and you vote with your wallet. Or if you work at these places and you go out and you say something, you let them know that it's not okay for little they, them, Timmy too over here to say that they like Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck. And you let your HR team know that it's not acceptable. It starts on the inside. So everybody who works within the industry, if you're watching this, I swear to God, Sam, clip this out and put this on my social media. If you work within the industry and you're not saying something and you're not going to your HR, you are part of the fucking problem. I don't want to hear anybody complain about it. You can't complain unless you say something, unless you do something about it. If you're not a part of the solution, you are part of the problem. So do something about it. Speak up. Let them know they have no place. This hate is not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. I'm tired of it. It's disgusting. It's on you. It's on you as the gamer. It's on you as the developer. It's on you as the publisher. It's on you as the CEO, the business owner. Whether you're making indie controllers, indie games, or AAA games, it's on you to set a precedent. Now is the time. This is a line in the sand right here. Do something about it.
Things are escalating at a dangerous rate and people need to bring it down. You're mad at someone, call them a retard. You know, just call them whatever. There's so many words. You're mad at them, just call them some bad words. It's really not that hard, brother. Why do you guys always gotta go for the throat? Literally. Are we really this disconnected from reality? I really hope not, but with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and end the video here. It's pointless to keep rambling. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned for more pepperoni soon. I'm gonna try to switch topics. There's one more video I'd like to make about something, but then, yeah, we're going to switch topics. Might talk about Borderlands next or something like that. We'll see. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.